Shumai guys, welcome back to the Life to the Full podcast, the podcast that helps you make the most of your time here on Earth. Your time is short, so you want it to be lived to the full. Now here we are on season 3 of the Life to the Full podcast, where we are looking at physical health. We've done a whole series on financial health. We've got physical health right now, we've got relational health and mental health and spiritual health coming up. But for now, we're in the physical health series. Now, last time I was making a case for introducing strength and resistance training, so weightlifting, into our weekly lives. I went into why weightlifting is so beneficial. It's good for our confidence, it's good for metabolism, it's good for our longevity. If you want to live a long and healthy life, then lifting weights a couple of times a week is incredibly beneficial. But it sounds like hard work. Yes it is. And that's the point. Doing hard things is where life and growth really happens. But today we are taking another deep dive into something that's much easier to do. You don't have to go anywhere to do it. You don't have to exert yourself to do it, although you can and you should add some exertion in periodically. It can do wonders for your body, and it's totally free. What am I talking about? See if you can guess. Well, I suppose you can actually only really guess if you've got automatic downloads on and this podcast episode has just appeared in your queue. You've probably read the title already. But let's play along. We're all doing it. We're usually thinking about something else whilst doing it. And we can do it in our sleep. If we stop doing it, then we die. Yes, that's right. It's breathing. I can't pinpoint exactly when I started thinking about conscious breathing, breathwork, and how the simple act of breathing in a particular way could have such a profound effect on the body. It was probably a podcast by Ben Greenfield going into different breathing techniques, and when I tried them, they had an instantaneous, massive effect on my body. I'd never even thought that breathing was something that we could do consciously, and when I discovered the power of intentional breathing, it became something I wanted to pursue further. If you've heard anything about breathwork and the power of the breath, it may have been from a chap called Wim Hof. Now, Wim has an incredible backstory and has enjoyed fame and notoriety for his crazy stunts in the snow and ice. He grew up in the Netherlands and as a boy would deliver newspapers at 4 a.m. in the freezing cold and the rain and the snow up hills and down dales. At the age of 17, he says he was called by the cold water to come and become a man. By cold water exposure and exposure to the snow and freezing temperatures, he found a connection with nature that would later shape him into the man he became. He's done a lot of crazy stunts, usually involving extreme cold. He got his nickname, the Iceman, by breaking a number of records related to cold exposure, including climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in shorts, running a half marathon above the Arctic Circle barefoot, and standing in a container while covered with ice cubes for more than 112 minutes. He now has a program on the BBC called Freeze the Fear. But as well as the cold exposure, the other secret to Wim's success is breathing. He credits breathing and his breathwork practice for being able to deal with the cold. He can heat his entire body with just the power of his breath. He developed his own breathing technique, which he's named the Wim Hof method. I'll give you a little rundown of the technique a little later. I was intrigued. I wanted to go deeper. I learnt about box breathing, alternate nostril breathing, breath holding. I watched David Blaine's world record breath hold and learnt the techniques that he used that I could use to hold my breath for upwards of 3 minutes with no prior practice. I learnt how breathing can change your inner physiology. And through all this research, there was one book that kept coming up time after time. That book was Breath by James Nestor. It's been on my to-read list for quite a while, but I've finally gotten round to reading it. And as is my habit, I want to share with you what I've learnt so that in turn your life can be enhanced. It may pique your interest so that you go on and read the book and others like it. It may be that you just take one technique and apply it to your daily life. In any case, I trust that you will find this interesting and insightful. In the introduction to the book, James Nestor talks about going to a breathwork class. "There are as many ways to breathe as there are foods to eat," said one female instructor, who had held her breath for more than 8 minutes and once dived below 300 feet. "And each way we breathe will affect our bodies in different ways. Some methods of breathing will nourish our brains, while others will kill neurons. Some will make us healthy, while others will hasten our death." They told crazy stories about how they breathed in ways that expanded the size of their lungs by 30% or more. They told me about an Indian doctor who lost several pounds by simply changing the way he inhaled, and about another man who was injected with a bacterial endotoxin, E. coli, then breathed in a rhythmic pattern to stimulate his immune system and destroy the toxins within minutes. They told me about women who put their cancers into remission and monks who could melt circles in the snow around their bare bodies over a period of several hours. It all sounded nuts. And James takes a deep dive into why nose breathing is so much better than mouth breathing. He spends 2 chapters talking about why mouth breathing is so bad. It causes crooked teeth, sleep apnea, snoring, inflammation of the throat, sinus problems, headaches, ADHD, causes high blood pressure, hypertension, which can lead to heart attacks and other serious problems. He did an experiment where he blocked his nose for 10 days, him and a scientist called Anders Olsen, and the quality of their sleep massively reduced due to the snoring, the dry mouth, and sleep apnea. Mouth breathing during exercise increases your heart rate and exertion and fatigue. Learning to breathe through your nose means you can exercise harder for longer without suffering a drop in performance. Over the 10-day period, James says he feels as if he's getting softly choked to death in his sleep, and his throat was closing in on itself. He says forced mouth breathing was very likely changing the shape of my airwaves. My snoring has increased 4,820% from 10 days ago. For the first time that I'm aware of, I'm beginning to suffer from obstructive sleep apnea at my worst. I've averaged 25 apnea events, meaning I was choking so severely that my oxygen levels dropped to below 85%. Whenever oxygen falls below 90%, the blood can't carry enough of it to support body tissues. If this goes on too long, it can lead to heart failure, depression, memory problems, and early death. Now, I've experienced this concern for oxygen levels dropping. Both my girls have ended up in hospital on separate occasions with difficulty breathing, and they've been hooked up to a saturation monitor to measure the oxygen levels in the blood. The machine starts beeping when it gets below 90%. In contrast to mouth breathing, which is all kinds of bad for us, nose breathing is the way that we were designed to breathe. Mouth breathing is a backup system which stops us from dying when our nostrils are blocked. Why is nose breathing so good for you? Breathing through your nose heats up the air that you breathe before it enters the lungs. It clears it, moistens it for easy absorption of oxygen. It also releases nitric oxide into the nasal passages. That sounds like a bad thing, right? Well, why is it actually good for us? Well, nitric oxide plays a critical role in blood circulation, leading to better oxygen uptake, and also has an important antimicrobial function, killing viruses in our nose and throat. It apparently increases your sexual prowess as well. One to explore for sure. I realize I'm only at the very beginning of my journey into discovering the importance of breathing and how I can use breathing and breathwork to enhance my life. I am ready to go on a deep dive today and just bring you initial thoughts from my initial readings. One of the many things that are crazy when you start going down the breathwork rabbit hole, which seems particularly crazy to me, is that breathing through your right nostril and breathing through your left nostril appear to put your body into different nervous states. Breathing through your right nostril activates your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight mechanism, so it puts you in a state of alertness and arousal. Whereas breathing through your left nostril activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is more associated with stress relief. The left nostril is a kind of brake system compared to the right nostril acceleration system. If you practice alternate nostril breathing, it can help bring balance to your nervous system. Breathing isn't just breathing, like food isn't just food. Eating well can become easier when you know how to cook and what foods do what things. Breathing is the same. Once you learn some of the many different ways to breathe, you can do some fun things. This is James Nestor again. What many of these doctors found, and what Olson would discover much later, was that the best way to prevent many chronic health problems, improve athletic performance, and extend longevity was to focus on how we breathed, specifically to balance oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in the body. To do this, we need to learn how to inhale and exhale slowly. So here's a little bit of science, as best I understand it, from my reading and very faint memories of GCSE biology. Your blood travels round your body from your heart to your lungs, where it picks up oxygen and takes it round to all the bits of the body that need it. And it goes back to the lungs for a refill. And this process takes about a minute. In the alveoli of your lungs, the exchange between carbon dioxide and oxygen happens. If the carbon dioxide and oxygen aren't in a stable balance, you run into problems with the exchange. So, it's not a case of oxygen equals good and carbon dioxide equals bad. In fact, we need more CO2 in order to function properly. CO2 relaxes the muscles that surround our airwaves, arteries, and capillaries, helping to increase blood flow to different parts of the body, like the brain, heart, and muscles. In other words, CO2 is what helps to get oxygen where it needs to go in the first place, a process described as the Bohr effect. This is the first surprise I came across in my reading, that actually to breathe better, you need to breathe less, and you need to breathe slower. Here's a test for you. If it's safe to do so, please don't try this if you're driving, operating heavy machinery, lifting weights, holding plates or dishes. Only if it's safe, take a breath. It doesn't have to be deep, and hold it as long as you can. That feeling of desperately wanting air in your lungs isn't a lack of oxygen, but in fact a build-up of carbon dioxide. So if you can train your body to withstand more CO2 and increase your breath-holding ability, you're on track to becoming a better breather. Another thing that causes us to be such poor breathers is our mouth size. Our mouths are too small to fit all our teeth in, and too small to fit our tongue in. This leads to crooked teeth and difficulty breathing, which leads to all sorts of ailments. Our ancestors had different diets to us. Our diets are full of soft food. Their diets would have involved eating meat they'd hunted and gnawing on bones. That kind of diet would involve a lot of chewing. They'd spend hours a day tenderizing the meat with their teeth, sitting around a fire and just using their facial muscles and their jaw muscles to get through this kind of diet, chewing on bark and tree shoots. This meant their faces were considerably larger than ours, and consequently they could breathe much better. Our diets are much, much softer. Take a look at your own diet. Likelihood is it's got lots of soft food in it. That means our own jaws and mouths hardly get much of a workout at all. Surprisingly, there are things that we can do to increase our mouth size, but it seems like the least intrusive of these is just chewing more. So if you fancy a diet with more steak, then that might be your ticket. Alternatively, you could chew some really chewy chewing gum. It's time for the moment you've all been waiting for. What can you do to start breathing better? What are some of the techniques you can get started with today? Again, if you want to do any of these right now, you can, but do it safely, and if you're listening on more than 1x speed, I'd encourage you to put it to 1x speed for the exercises. One of my favourite breathing techniques is called box breathing. I use it when I want to relax, or if I'm trying to take control of my body or my thoughts. It's used by Navy SEALs in stressful situations to remain in control. It goes like this. You breathe in for a count of 4, you hold for a count of 4, you breathe out for a count of 4, and then you hold for a count of 4, and repeat. You can do this for 4 or 5 breaths or until you feel calm. I've even taught students to use this technique during exams to clear the mind and focus what they have to do. They said it was amazing for their mental clarity. Let's give it a try. In. Hold. Out. Hold. In. Hold. Out. Hold. In. Hold. Out. Hold. You may even find that just after 3 breaths, you feel much calmer. The next technique works the opposite way. If you're in an afternoon slump or you need to pump yourself up, then I breathe really quickly in through the nose and out through the mouth. And you keep going for about 30 seconds. So it goes like this. Keep going, and that can pump you up so that you're ready for whatever you have to do. Then we've got the Wim Hof method. So this is the breathing technique, the Wim Hof method protocol, basic breathing exercise that Wim Hof swears by and lives by. Before engaging with this breathing technique, remember to be mindful. Listen to your body and learn from the signals your body and mind send you while you are doing the exercises. Use those signals as personal feedback about the effect of the exercises on your body and mind, and adjust them as needed to find what works best for you. Step 1. Sit in a meditation posture, lying down, or whichever way is most comfortable for you, in a quiet and safe environment. Make sure you can expand your lungs freely without feeling any constriction. Step 2. Close your eyes and try to clear your mind. Be conscious about your breath and try to fully connect with it. Take 30 to 40 deep breaths in through the nose or mouth. Fill up your belly, your chest, all the way up to your head. Don't force the exhale. Just relax and let the air out. Fully in, letting go. Step 3. At the end of the last breath, draw the breath in once more and fill the lungs to maximum capacity without using any force. Then relax to let the air out. Hold the breath until you feel the urge to breathe again. This is called the retention phase. Step 4. When you feel the urge to breathe, take one deep breath in and hold it for 10 to 15 seconds. This is called the recovery breath. Step 5. Let your breath go and start with a new round. Fully in, letting go. Repeat the cycle 3 to 4 times. After having completed this breathing exercise, take your time to enjoy the feeling. With repeated practice, this protocol becomes more and more like a meditation. Once you have a little experience with the basic breathing exercise, try this additional technique. In round 2, step 4, try squeezing the breath to your head when you take your recovery breath. You do this by tensing your pelvic floor and directing that sense of tension to the core of your body and up to your head, while keeping the rest of your body relaxed. You should feel a sense of pressure in your head. Then, relax everything when you exhale. Like I said, Wim Hof is what got me into this breathing malarkey, and so I really enjoy doing the Wim Hof method on a fairly regular basis. And the last one we're going to talk about today, there's so many, I could do a whole other podcast on this, but it's holotropic breath work. Now, this is the craziest form of breathing I've done, and by the sound of things, my experience wasn't even that crazy. What is holotropic breathwork? It's a therapeutic and transformative practice developed by psychiatrist Stanislav Grof and his wife Christina Grof in the 1970s. It combines deep and rhythmic breathing with evocative music and bodywork to induce altered states of consciousness and facilitate self-exploration and healing. The term holotropic means moving towards wholeness, reflecting the practice's aims of helping individuals connect with their inner selves and unlock personal growth. During a holotropic breathwork session, participants lie down, close their eyes, and engage in accelerated breathing patterns. The controlled and intense breathing serves as a catalyst for entering a non-ordinary state of consciousness. Often people describe it like a waking dream or a deep meditation. The accompanying music, carefully selected to evoke various emotions and experiences, enhances the journey. Participants may experience a wide range of sensations and emotions during a holotropic breathwork session, including repressed memories, deep insights, emotional release, and spiritual experiences. These experiences can be cathartic and therapeutic, providing an opportunity to confront and heal past traumas, unresolved emotions, and inner conflicts. It's not uncommon for people to scream and cry. Therapy can involve working with some deep past trauma and needs a safe space to work. That's why holotropic breathwork is typically conducted in group settings, with participants taking turns as breathers and sitters who provide support and guidance. So the process is usually guided by trained facilitators who create a safe and supportive environment for the participants. The benefits of holotropic breathwork include enhanced self-awareness, personal growth, emotional healing, and it can be a tool for spiritual exploration and the integration of altered states of consciousness into daily life. And this is what I wanted. I wanted to be able to connect with God on a deeper level, not just looking after my physical health, but my spiritual health as well. However, it's usually advised to approach this practice with caution and work with experienced facilitators, because intense and emotional and psychological experiences can arise. I didn't listen to the last bit of advice and did it on my own. I felt safe because of my lack of childhood trauma, so I lay down on my yoga mat on the floor, got myself a blanket and some music, and started breathing like this. Over-breathing through the mouth for 30 minutes. With no pauses between the breaths. I'm going to insert a little clip of my thoughts immediately after finishing my first session in right here. Okay, so it's future Dav here, or past Dav, whichever way round this might end up being. But I just wanted to jump on the microphone immediately after finishing my breathwork practice, just to offload and kind of to recap a little bit, to give you some kind of insight into what it was like. Now, I usually, this is going to be a little bit more off the cuff than usual. Most of my episodes, I kind of think in advance, what am I going to say? How am I going to say this the most persuasive way? What are the most convincing arguments that I can make here? But this is just kind of free-flowing. I've just come off my breathwork, and I'm just going to see what I can say. So I started doing 30 minutes of a holotropic breathwork style breathing exercise. Now, obviously the holotropic breathwork is a particular brand, but all it is just breathing like this. For a really long time. So I lay down somewhere comfortable. I lay down on the floor in the lounge. There was nobody else in. Kids are at school, wife's at work, grandparents haven't arrived yet. And I just laid down, made myself comfortable with a blanket and a pillow, and then just started putting some music on, and then just breathing for 30 minutes. I put a timer on for 30 minutes. After a couple of minutes, I thought to myself, I don't like this. This is not feeling comfortable. But I've just finished a book on the rise of the ultramarathon. So I was thinking, if these guys are running, hundreds of miles and their body is in bits and they're not giving up, why should I just give up doing breath work after a few minutes because it feels uncomfortable or it feels a bit weird? So I said to myself, right, I'll just push through, keep going. I think after about 10 minutes, I started to just feel quite tense in my body. It's quite common for your hands to kind of go claw-like. They kind of, end up in a really contorted shape. And I just, felt a bit weird. Kept going, and I think I must have, I don't know what happened in the next 10 or 15 minutes, because the next thing I know, I'm feeling some kind of like tenseness in my hamstrings. I think my hamstrings are generally pretty tense anyway, but there was some tension there, and I kind of rolled over a little bit, rolled onto my tummy, and I was just feeling all this tension, and I looked to see how long that was left on the clock, and it was 5 minutes to go. I just don't know what happened to that 15 minutes, and I couldn't control my phone because my hands were in like this claw position, and it was bizarre. But I pushed through for the last 5 minutes and then stopped after 30 minutes. And that's when the kind of peace of it all hit me. I just felt really, really peaceful. I felt like I had pins and needles in my hands. That's quite common, apparently. And just felt like I just needed to lie down for a bit. So I lied on my side, and just there was just peaceful for a good 10 minutes. I think it took 10 minutes for me to feel like I was ready to get up again. So there we go. That was a little quick recap. Gosh, I've been chatting on for about 4.5 minutes. A recap of my holotropic breathwork practice that I did earlier this week, just now, today, yesterday, whenever this comes out, whenever you're listening to this. And now back to the episode. Has your mind blown with the science and story of breathing? Are you going to try any of the techniques? Head over to Instagram and let me know. I'm David Morse, or Life to the Full podcast. And don't forget to tell someone about the podcast. Speak to you soon. Peace out.